DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is do it anyway. Before we get into this, I'll remind you two things. First of all, daily motivation message guaranteed to be focused, sharp, and on point every day and every week. We have a Monday motivation as well. All you got to do is text me to be in my text community. My number is 305-384-6894. Once we start sending those messages again, which will be soon, you'll be getting those straight to your phone, and you can even tell us how often you want to receive the messages. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where I'll do all my coaching. We're looking for high-level performers who want to maximize your game when it comes to your mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability when it comes to your personal and professional life. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below in the description to this episode. That out the way, let's get into the topic, which is do it anyway. This episode is about exactly what the title says, moving yourself to action, especially things that are high on your priority list and things that are high ROI activities that we've been talking about a lot here on the show, things that we know will make a big difference for us, but sometimes we find ourselves hesitant and delaying in getting to the actions in those things for certain reasons. Today, we're going to talk about why and how you can do it anyway. Number one, the most difficult stuff is often the most important. The most difficult stuff is often the most important stuff. The reason why it's difficult is because it's important. The reason it's important because it's difficult, because the things that are important, this means it has a high effect on and a high impact on your success or lack thereof. The reason it has such a high impact on your success is because it's not easy to do. Now, why is that a connection? That's the connection because things that have a high impact on success are not easy to do by definition, because if they had a high impact on success and they were easy to do, then everyone would just do it and everyone would be successful. Most people are not successful because most people are not willing to do things that are difficult that would lead them to success. You, on the other hand, are not going to have that problem because you are going to learn how to move yourself to action despite the difficulty of that action, because you understand on the other side of dealing with that difficulty is the success that you are seeking. And this is the reason why in Work on Your Game University, we help you with your mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability to make sure you implement even when you have to deal with things that are difficult. And I guarantee you, you will be dealing with some things that are difficult. And difficult doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means it takes maybe a little bit more effort, a little bit more grit and grind to do them than it would take to do other things. Difficult does not mean you can't do it. So the stuff that we usually put off until last, the stuff that we don't always get around to, but we know we need to get to, those are the things that usually create the highest return on investment for us when we do finally get around to doing them. For example, I was talking to a friend of mine in business the other day. He was telling me that he finally launched his coaching program. And he told me this in the first week of July in 2024. Now, I was talking to this guy. He was telling me about his coaching program back in, man, this had to have been September of 2023. So September 3, 7, almost 10 months ago, I was talking to this guy. He was telling me that he could launch a coaching program and he knew he could sell his coaching program to the people in his audience. He already had an audience from years of selling his stuff. And he said, I know I could just launch it and do that. But he was, hesitant and doing other things. He had other things going on in his life and his career. He didn't do it. And I just sent him a message just a few days ago. And he was telling me that he finally launched his coaching program and he sold like $70,000 worth of coaching to people in his audience immediately when he first launched the program. Now, he could have made that $70,000 10 months ago, but he didn't because he put it off until later. And I would guess, I'm just guessing, that $70,000 in these new coaching clients that he picked up probably made a high impact on his success when it comes to his business, his bottom line, and what he's going to do in his future. So why did he take 10 months to do it? Because it's probably hard to do. It was hard to move himself to action to get the thing done. And it's the same thing with you. I'm not saying that you're selling coaching. I'm not saying you're going to make $70,000. What I'm saying is that the things that will make the biggest impact on you and for you are the things that you've been putting off, and you put them off, and you put them off, and you put them off. And when you finally do them, they create such a return on investment. You're like, damn, I wish I had done this a long time ago. Well, a long time ago is now for you, so that you're not thinking 10 months from now that you should have did something today. I'm telling you and reminding you that you need to get to doing it now. And again, this is the reason why we have our university, to help you with this issue. So we got to get around to these things that create the high ROI, or at least have the potential to create high ROI, because we know the stuff that doesn't have the potential to do it, like checking your email, that does not have the potential to create a higher return on investment, nor does scrolling through social media have the potential to create a high return on investment, yet you still do it, even though you know that the potential for that activity is very low. But the potential for other activities that you are not doing are very high, yet you never move yourself to do them. In other words, you are not setting yourself up to be successful. You're setting yourself up to be mediocre, because the things that you're doing, the best they can produce is mediocrity. The things that could produce amazingness and greatness for you, you're not doing them. You're putting them off until later. Why? Because they're hard. All human beings have a bad habit of putting things off until later, also known as procrastination, especially if we associate some form of pain or exertion with those things that we're putting off. Most human beings go for the path of least resistance, the thing that is most easy to do, or at least seems most easy, and the thing that is least painful for us to do. Your job then is to consider what most people do and do the opposite of that. The opportunity in life, folks, is always in the opposites. Looking around at what most people do and doing the opposite of that, because most people are average. Since most people are average, and assuming that you don't want to be average, all you got to do is look at what the average people do and don't do that. And now you give yourself the opportunity to be something other than average. The opportunity doesn't guarantee it, but it gives you a pretty good chance. Go straight to the thing that appears to be difficult and get the advances for yourself by doing what most people are not willing to do, what most people know about, but they're simply not doing it simply because it is too hard, it's too difficult, too challenging, too tedious. There's too much friction involved in getting it done for most people. You are not going to have that problem because you recognize that this is the issue, and you're going to push yourself past that plateau with discipline. And again, in our university, we will teach you and coach you on how to deal with that. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is do it anyway. Number 2, do not feed procrastination, laziness, or fear with more time. All right, that is their food. The food of procrastination, which is putting things off until later. Laziness, which is just not doing stuff even though you need to do it. Those are fed with time. The more you give time to procrastination, the easier it is to continue procrastinating. The more you feel lazy and listless and not wanting to do something, the easier it is to keep feeling like that if you just keep giving it time. You keep telling yourself, well, I don't feel like getting up and cleaning the garage. And you put it off this weekend until next week, and then you do again next weekend and again the weekend after that. Before long, you're no longer thinking about cleaning the garage, and you just craft a story in your mind that makes it okay that the garage is just not going to get cleaned. All right, the more time you give to these things, the stronger they get, to the point that you stop constantly thinking about it, and instead your subconscious mind crafts a story that makes it okay that you did nothing. How many of you have something in your life that fits that description? Everybody has something. You might not be thinking about it right now, but we all have things that fit that description. The more you put off doing a thing, the easier it is to continue putting off doing the thing. This is a form of the law of inertia. It states that an object that is not in motion, this is a form of also known as stagnation, tends to remain not in motion. And if the longer that you stay not in motion on anything, the easier it is to remain not in motion. It's just simple. Let's just keep not doing it. I'm already not doing it. Might as well keep not doing it. I mean, I didn't do it for the last year. I didn't die. Well, all right, I guess I won't die this year if I continue to do nothing. This is the rationalization, again, subconsciously, that many human beings come up with. That is the reason why they do not move forward, because it's too easy to stay in the same spot, because there's nothing forcing you to move forward. It's not like you face some grave danger if you don't move forward. Remember, folks, failure is often subtle. It can sometimes be immediate, but often it is subtle, meaning you don't even notice that you're failing because it's happening so slowly and so incrementally and so quietly. You don't even realize that you're on your way there until you arrive there. One day you wake up and say, how the hell did I get here? Is an accumulation of small decisions or indecisions or bad judgment added up over time. This is like the concept of the third day. In my book, The Third Day, I have a section where I talk about the separation day. And those are the days when you show up on the days that you don't feel like it, and you create just a small amount of separation between you and your competition, or you close a small amount of the gap between you and your competition if they happen to be ahead of you. And every time you show up on the separation day, again, you're slowly catching up or slowly getting further ahead. Well, this is like the inverse of the separation day. Inverse of the separation day is you slowly going backwards, getting further away from the competition that you're trying to catch up to, or you're allowing them to catch up to you simply because you're not showing up and doing your job. Eventually, that's failure catching up. The competition I'm referring to here is failure. And eventually failure catches up to you, and then you realize, like, damn, how the hell I get the failure? I thought I was doing okay. I just put things off a couple times. I didn't realize it was this much. And by then, it's too late to do anything about it. So remember that the law of inertia tells us we continue to do things that we are already doing. So if you are already procrastinating, it's easier to keep procrastinating. Doesn't mean it's impossible for you to break the habit of procrastination, but it takes more energy to break it once you allow the habit to set in. That's why you want to catch it before it happens. This is the discipline. The same thing when it comes to being lazy, same thing when it comes to fear, same thing with coming up with excuses. Anything that you're already doing, you tend to continue to do it. So you want to start yourself on the right foot by doing the right things from the beginning, which creates more energy to keep that thing up. If you start off on the right foot, it's easier to stay on the right foot. Again, not impossible if you start off on the wrong foot, but it takes more resources to fix it if you end up in a bad space than it does if you just start out in the right space. It's kind of like when people talk about investing, and you may have seen the charts or graphs that people explain. If you start investing $100 a month when you're 18 years old, it's easier to accumulate money than if you wait until you're 35 years old to start doing the same thing. You have to invest a whole lot more money just to catch up with what you would have gotten in all the, what's the word I'm looking for? All the compounding interest that you would have got had you started from an earlier point. So again, not impossible, just takes a lot more resources. So better off to start at the beginning than to wait until it's too late. Again, this applies to laziness, fearfulness, coming up with excuses, procrastination, anything, any bad habit that you know you have that you want to get rid of. So start yourself on the right foot by doing the right thing from the start. You have items on your list that have been pushed over from day to day. You're going to notice that some items end up getting buried under all the new stuff that actually gets done because it's fresh and new to you. And the old stuff never gets tended to because you've already created the habit of pushing it off to the point that it's no longer urgent. It was urgent when you wrote it down, but now it's been 3 months since you wrote it down. Now you might as well just not do it. You're just shrugging it off because you've already created the habit of pushing it off. It's not even a pressing need for you to do anything about it. This is why getting things done matters so much, because we tend to have more ideas and thoughts that we have time than we have time to get to. We have more ideas of things to do than we have time and resources to actually do, oftentimes. Now, hopefully you get to the point, and I want to get to this point too. Everybody should want to get to this point to where we can actually have the resources meaning people, systems, technologies, time, money, energy, ideas, information, etc., to where every idea we have, we can actually execute on. The challenge is some people have more ideas than others. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we develop the habit of actually getting to the things that we know we need to get to, and at least increase our percentages. Even if we can't get to 100%, at least shoot a better percentage than what we're shooting right now. Again, this is a more prevalent issue for some people than it is for others, but it exists for everybody because some people, again, add more things to their list than other people do. But none of us is shooting 1,000%. None of us is getting everything that we want to get done. You want to start reducing that number. When we talked about the levels of procrastination, we talked about this. You want to reduce that number, and you also want to make sure that the things you're procrastinating on are not the things that are most important and most pertinent when it comes to your future success and your personal well-being. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is do it anyway. Number 3, momentum feeds off of itself. I mentioned the law of inertia earlier. All right, the one side of it is stagnation. An object that is not moving tends to keep not moving. The other side of it is momentum. An object that is in motion tends to remain in motion. So the flip side of procrastination and stagnation is momentum. You're moving, you have something going, and you let it keep going. When you're already moving in a positive direction, it's much easier to continue moving in that positive direction because the momentum carries more of its own kind. It creates, more of its own kind, just like laziness does. When you're feeling lethargic and not doing anything, it's easy to just keep doing nothing. But when you're in momentum and moving, it's easier to keep doing something. So your job is to start yourself off on the right foot with positive activities. This is one of the reasons why you hear many people, even myself, talking about having a morning routine. And people often ask me about a morning routine. You know why a morning routine matters for creating success in your life or at work? Because it starts you off with positive momentum in your day, which creates more of its kind. If you start the day with positive momentum, it's easier to maintain it than if you start your day in lethargy and doing nothing, and then you have to try to create it after you've already started, again, going in the wrong direction. So starting off with that positive energy is a big deal, which is why a morning routine is a big thing. You'll hear a lot of people who talk about success or personal development or professional development or any kind of discipline or structure of the day. They often talk about structuring your mornings, again, because the start matters. The finish matters as well, and the middle matters, but the start matters too. And the start tends to set in motion everything else that happens after it. This is the reason why you don't eat cake and ice cream for breakfast, but you will eat it for dinner. All right, there's a reason. The start matters, and I tend to put a lot of weight in how things start because it sets everything else up. It's easier to follow up actions that you're already doing than it is to create an action when you're not doing it. It's harder to create momentum when you don't have any than it is to allow momentum to continue when you already have it. Can everybody agree? Shall I say it again? It's harder to create momentum when you don't have any than it is to allow momentum to continue when you already have it. So it's easier it's easier to stay rich than it is to become rich, right? If you're already there. Now again, it doesn't mean if you're not rich, it doesn't mean you can't get there, right? One person already has the momentum and the other one does not. So it doesn't make momentum impossible. Again, I'm just letting you know it'll take you a whole lot more resources. And many people look at that and say, well, that's okay, I'll just get the more resources. Well, that sounds good when you're talking about it. It's a lot harder to do than it is to say. Okay, so again, it doesn't make it impossible when you start out in stagnation, but it requires more resources that you might not have the resources to go get when it comes time that you have to go get them. So do you want to do things the hard way? Or you want to do things the easy way? That's the question that you're really asking yourself here. Do you want to do it the hard way or do you want to do it the easy way? And don't say you're just going to do it the hard way because you believe that sometime in the future you'll be able to do it. You might not be able to. All right, don't fool yourself and thinking, okay, I'm just going to be easy now, then I'll figure it out later. You might not be able to figure it out later. And you may not have the same opportunity 10 years from now that you had today. Do not take it for granted that the opportunity is in front of you right now because opportunity does not wait. It does not knock. It will not come looking for you. It will be taken by someone else who is more, what's the word, opportunistic about what was in front of them than you are being right now. So heed this message. Let me recap today's class, which is do it anyway. Point number one, the most difficult stuff is often the most important stuff. That's why it's difficult, because it has a large effect on success. And if you want to have a large impact on your success, usually you got to do things that most people don't want to do, which is usually the hard stuff. Things that seem difficult, at least from the outside looking in. Number two, don't feed procrastination, laziness, or fear with more time. If you're feeling any of those energies or you're doing any of those things, the more you give it time, the worse it gets. So the first thing you should do as soon as you notice that you're procrastinating, being lazy, or fearful is to take action. That is a sign that you should take action so you can break that habit before it becomes insurmountable, before you can't do anything with it and the law of inertia takes over. And number three, flip side of inertia, for at least the stagnation part, is momentum feeds off of itself. Again, the flip side of procrastination and stagnation is momentum. When you are already in motion, it's much easier to stay in motion. So it's better to start in motion. Start in motion by having a process and a system. Follow that, stay in motion, and don't break it. It becomes a habit, and it's easier to keep doing a thing than it is to try to start it from nothing or even to stop it. Once you get in positive momentum, usually it stays that way unless you do something intentionally to break it. And you won't want to because it's working for you. All that said, text me so you're in my community. My number is down below in the description. Workonyourgameuniversity.com if you would like to have me as your direct coach. We have a couple different options for how you can engage with us. And again, mindset, strategy, systems, accountability encompasses what we do, whether we're talking your personal or your professional development for top level performers and those who want to be. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all